Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. I hope you are all doing great today. In this session, we will be diving into an interesting management system, that is Environmental Management System, or EMS for short. In the previous lecture, I believe you still remember, you have discovered what is EMS, their challenges and their benefits. And for this lecture, we'll be looking into the practical approach to EMS implementation and how this system helps companies to manage their environmental responsibility. We will also explore a real-world example of few companies that brings this concept to life. Are you ready? Let's get started. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at what we aim to achieve today. First, we'll understand the step-by-step process of EMS implementation. It's like learning the recipe for a successful EMS. Second, we will analyze how companies manage their environmental aspect and impacts through practical examples. And finally, we will uncover the benefits of EMS and why it's a game changer for businesses and the environmental alike. Okay, let's move on. Now, let's talk about the backbone of EMS. It's the key elements. There are 6 of them, as you can see on this slide. We start with policy, where this policy actually sets the company's environmental vision. Then comes planning, where the blueprint for action is created. Next is implementation, where plans become reality. And then checking and corrective action, which ensures things stays on track. We also have management review, where leaders evaluate the system's performance. And finally, continual improvement, where companies refine and elevate their EMS over time. One thing I want you to notice, there is a circular flow of the diagram, right? So this represents the ongoing nature of EMS. It is not a straight line or a one-time thing. No, right? Companies continuously enhance their processes to reduce their environmental impact further. Pretty cool, right? The first element, policy. Policy is like the foundation of a house. Without a strong policy, the element would crumble. A good environmental policy reflects the company's commitment to sustainability and compliance with law and regulations. Okay, so policy sets the tone for the entire organizations and ensures everyone from top management to employees is on the same page. So establishing an environmental policy also is not an easy process. Okay, it is a one page, as you can see in this part. Okay, I've shared with you 2 environmental policies from Daikin and SIA Engineering Company. Seems very simple, but it is very critical to come up with this policy. Alright. Now, let's take a closer look at how a company prepares its environmental policy. It is not something done overnight, students, but it is a structural process where key steps to ensure it's both effective and meaningful. Okay, the first step, understand the organizational context. Okay, we start by analyzing the company missions, visions, and values. Think of this as understanding the DNA of the organization, what it stands for, and the challenges it faces, both internally and externally in environmental management. Okay, step 2. This is about collaboration. Okay, you engage the stakeholder. Top management sets the strategy directions, but it's just as important to gather input from others, employees, customers, community, and regulatory bodies. Why? Because a well-rounded policy reflects everyone's priority. Okay? Step 3, assess environmental aspects. Next, company assess their environmental activities to identify significant environmental impacts. For example, what processes emit pollutions? What processes consume resources a lot? Or which process generate waste? Okay, so these aspects are then prioritized based on risk, opportunities, and legal requirement. Okay, step 4, align with legal and regulatory standards. A good policy isn't just aspirational. Okay, it must comply with environmental laws and standards like ISO 14001. This step ensures that the policy is both practical and enforceable. Step 5, draft, validate, and communicate. Okay, the draft policy should clearly commit to compliance, continual improvement, and pollution prevention. So after management reviews and approves, the policy is shared with employees and stakeholders. Okay, why? Because we want to ensure everyone understand their role. Okay, and finally, the last step is implement and review. The policy is integrated into company's operation and regularly reviewed to stay relevant with changing goals. Okay, changing goals, regulations, and business conditions. Okay, because why I say changing goals? Because upon achieving certain of the policy's target, you may revise and set a new goals. Regulations may also change from one company, or for example, you are having clients from other countries, so you may need to comply regulations from another countries. All right, so this workflow ensures that the environmental policy isn't just a document. Okay, it is a living, actionable guide for sustainable operations. Let's go into our next element, which is planning. Okay, planning involves identifying environmental aspect and impacts, identify legal and regulatory requirements, and setting clear objectives and targets. Company must assess their current environmental performance and risk before setting actionable plan. Effective planning ensures that resources are allocated efficiently and objectives are realistic and measurable. Okay, let's bring our discussion about planning to life with a real world example. Okay, on this slide, you see a table that connects corporate actions, goal and objectives, and major activities. Okay, you scrutinize that. All right, so this format is a practical way companies translate high level commitments, okay, which is from the policy initially, into actionable steps. Okay, let's focus on item number 4. Okay, oh, by the way, this table is basically taken from Hanwha Company Limited to illustrate and just to give you an example of how the real companies is actually setting up their environmental management program. Okay, so example number 4 is actually the effective use of natural resources and energy. Okay, the corporate action here focus on making natural resources and energy used more effective. The goal is ambitious yet specific, which is increasing involvement of renewable energy activities. Notice how this directly supports environmental sustainability, and actually it ties back to the company's policy and commitment, right? But how does a company achieve this goal? Okay, it doesn't stop at goals and objectives alone. You can see to the next column, which is actually on major activities, right? So major activities outlined there is promote of biomass fuels, encouraging the development and use of renewable energy sources like biomass, which is not only reduces dependency on fossil fuels, but also supports a circular economy by reusing waste materials. The second major activities is supply solar and wind power parts and materials. By providing this critical component for solar and wind energy systems, the company activities enable the transitions to cleaner energy sources. So this example shows how planning translates high level aspirations into meaningful and measurable action. Okay, it is also great reminder of how environmental goals can align with business opportunity. You see, like engaging in the renewable energy market. Now, you can look at the text next to the table, okay? Because this highlights the processes involved in developing environmental management program, or EMP, under planning stage. Because first, you need to identify key aspects by focusing on significant environmental aspects. Oops. Okay, what are the impact and aspect? Okay, it has been actually highlighted in few slides, but I didn't go into detail of the term aspects and impacts. All right, so before we go more on the other points of these slides, let's move to the information about aspect and impact first, yeah? All right. Since we are exploring planning on EMS, let's dive into two critical terms. These two critical terms is important for you to understand, all right? Aspects and impacts, environmental aspects and environmental impacts. These are actually the foundation concept in environmental management system, and understanding them is key to managing environmental performance effectively. So, what are aspect? Aspect is basically the cause. Okay, they are elements of a company's activity, a company's product, or services that interact with the environment. For example, okay, give you an example over there. a factory emitting gases during production is an aspect, and we can refer to as air emissions. All right, second example, a construction site generating loud machinery sounds, and the aspect we can label as noise generation. Clear? Okay, now let us see, on the other hand, what are the impacts. Okay, so impacts is actually represent the change that occurs in the environment as a result of this aspect. Okay, so they are the effects. So I give also an examples. An emission from the factory cause air pollution or contributing to climate change. Okay, so the impact or the effects are air pollutions that contributes to climate change, for example. And the second example, okay, from the aspect of generating noise, the noise generation. So the noise generation from the construction site disturbing nearby residents, or this noise also may affect wildlife behavior. Okay, so that is the effect, or that are the impact, noise pollution. So to make it clearer, so you may take that aspect is the cause, while impact is actually the effect from that cause. Okay, and why does this matter? Okay, I ask you questions. Why does this matter? Basically, understanding these terms helps a company identifying where they are affecting to the environment and how to prioritize improvements. Okay, for example, if air emissions are identified as a significant aspect, so the company can set goals to reduce their aspect, okay, by minimizing their negative impact on air quality and the climate change. Okay, imagine you work at a food packaging company. So what might be an environmental aspect of your operation? Okay, food packaging company. What are the aspects? And what would be the potential impact? Think. You know why? These questions basically should help you connect the dots and see how these terms apply in real world scenario. The better you understand this now, is actually easier it will be to conduct environmental assessment. So you might be the environmental auditor later. So once you understand environmental aspect and environmental impact, you can be a good environmental auditors and assess the environmental issues in the future. Okay, so let us go back into our planning page just now. Okay, so once you have identified your company's impact and aspect, normally in one department, okay, in one company, it is not only one aspect and one impact. No, it can be more. Okay, for example, in a department, even though you are in a wastewater treatment plant department, you may have more than one aspect. All right, for example, generating solid waste, it is one of the aspect. And for example, another aspect is partially treated effluent. Okay, most probably because your microbes are not healthy enough, okay, to decompose your pollutants. So these are the aspect, and it leads into impacts. Okay, so the impacts may be soil pollutions, water pollutions, okay, what else, eutrophications maybe. So these are the things that you need to understand, okay, okay, identifies your key impacts from the company operation. So next we go into set clear goals. Okay, because having a clear goals, you are able to have a measurable and align with sustainability. Okay, and next is you also will ensure compliance by integrating legal and regulatory requirement. You know, for example, in wastewater treatment plant, what are the parameters to be measured and how it can comply to regulation. Alright, so this is where actually legal and regulatory compliance come into pictures. Next is actually looking into managers risk and resources. Okay, because once you know there are areas for you to improve, you need to know what are their risks and do you have resources to allocate for the efforts or the activities. For example, you want to incorporate a new treatment processes to ensure that your effluent can be treated fully or not partially. Okay, so you may need to add on another steps of wastewater treatment process. And finally, drafts improvement is actually creating a structured roadmap for long-term success. Okay. Planning is great, but without action, it's just a piece of paper. Am I right? Okay, so that's why implementation comes in. In these steps, companies put their plan into action by developing procedures. Okay, so procedures must be there in the implementations and training the employees also another critical points and allocating resources. All right, for example, BASF, for example, another company might implement energy saving technology in their production process or training staff on waste segregations. So that is the implementations that need to be done by the company. So this phase basically ensures that environmental policy and plan, okay, are integrated into the company's day-to-day operation. All right, so it's all about making things happen. Now let's move on to a critical aspect of EMS, that is implementation, under implementation, yeah, which is training, awareness and competency. There are few points under implementation. For example, structure and responsibility, okay, training, awareness and competency, communication, documentation, okay, but here I would like to highlight on one part, which is training. Right? So who needs training? Okay, when we talk about training, many people think it's just for the company's direct employees. Yes, the employees have to be trained on whatever environmental management system of the companies said earlier. But okay, if you look at these standard documents, it do mentions here that those who work full-time in the organizations and also working for or on behalf of the organization, not just employee, must be competent to perform tasks associated with organizational significant environmental impacts. You see? So meaning that EMS does not stop at their direct employees, but it extends to everyone working on behalf of the company. Let me explain. Okay, for example, subcontractors. Okay, example, cleaning staff hired through the third-party service company. So they might handle chemicals or generate waste during cleaning. So without proper training to them, they could unknowingly harm the environment or fail to comply with your company's environmental policy. So These cleaners, which is not a direct employees of your company, must be trained. Another example, drivers. Okay, imagine that a delivery truck drivers, okay, hired by a logistic company, a third party company. If, let's say, your EMS has identified that air emission from idling lorries during goods delivery is a significant environmental aspect, and you don't train these drivers, so they definitely might leave their engines running. Okay, they on their engines and contributes to air pollution and wasting fuel. So that's why if you train this driver, they definitely will know the importance of switching off their engines while waiting, and they are able to reduce emissions and align their actions with your EMS. Okay, so that's why don't only think that when you are implementing EMS, you only cover your direct staff. Okay, it also covers people that actually on behalf of your organizations also. So why is this important? Because first one is consistency across operation. Okay, whether the person is directly employed or working on behalf of the company, their actions affect the company's environmental performance. All right, so consistent training ensures everyone is aligned with company's goal. Second, you will minimize the risk, okay, because lack of awareness can lead to environmental incidents such as spills, emissions, or improper waste disposal. So when you train your people that working within your company's compound, so this will empower the people to make the right decision. Okay, and the third point is actually you may comply to regulations or requirements and also establish reputations. Okay, because regulators and stakeholders expect companies with EMS is actually to demonstrate control over their environmental impacts. You need to ensure your subcontractors and other partners are trained and shows your commitment to compliance and sustainability. Okay, I just would like to give you a scenario for you to think. All right, imagine you are managing a warehouse that regularly receive goods. Okay, a warehouse that receiving goods, and without training, drivers might leave their trucks idle for hours while unloading. So this leads to unnecessary carbon emissions and increase your company's environmental footprints. However, if you implement a simple policy such as training drivers to turn off engines while stationary, you are taking a proactive steps to reduce emissions and demonstrate responsibility. Okay? So how do you think that training improves the overall environmental performance and of the company? It is a crucial element, right? And can you identify other roles within a company or its extended operation that might benefit from EMS related to training? Think. Okay. So training, the points that I want to share with you is training is not just about ticking box. Okay, so QA staff has been trained, tick, and then the manufacturing line staffs has been trained, tick. It is not only a ticking box. Okay, you are fulfilling compliance requirements. All right, by train them and make them understand. Okay, I still remember when my first company that I'm working in, okay, National Panasonic. So basically, I was assigned to train all the staffs, inclusive of all these subcontractors staff to train, and I have to prepare all their syllabus. Okay, so I was not introduced into EMS before, but I have to learn it while I'm in the company, and I train from the cleaners up to the CEOs. Okay, it is not an escape. Even the CEOs need to go through the training. All right. Okay, so this is about implementations under training and awareness. Next, let us go into corrective and checking and corrective actions. Okay, so companies monitor and measures their performance against the objectives they set during the planning stage. For instance, you are responsible of doing audit at the logistic company and identifies lorry did not switch off the engines. So meaning the person in charge in the logistic department are not monitoring their staffs or contractors accordingly. So if something isn't right, corrective actions need to be taken. And this phase ensures continuous alignment with goal and compliance. Okay, all right, so this, you have a plan, you have the implementation, do, and this is the check part. Okay, plan, do, check, action. So these checking parts need to be done here. All right, let us dive into this part under monitoring and measurement, since this is crucial in EMS to track your performance and ensure compliance to EMS. So what are the difference between monitoring and measurement? So monitoring basically regularly observed key environmental aspect like emissions or waste, which you have stated earlier in your policy and also in your EMP, okay, your management plan. And then measurement is actually you collect data to compare against goal. Okay, have you achieved or not? Okay, against goal and targets. Okay, because you put that you want to reduce, for example, 90% of your energy to be safe. So you will collect data. So in this monitoring and measurement, you need to track progress, okay, to ensure that environmental goals like reducing energy use are being met. If you're not tracking or you are not measuring, so basically you don't know either you comply or not, or you meet or not your policy that you've met earlier. And you also will ensure, okay, compliance. Okay, because if you just state in the policy, you just state in your objectives and targets earlier, but you didn't go for measurement, okay, what happened is you cannot confirm your operations meets legal and regulatory standard or not. Okay, and by having this monitoring and measurement continuously, basically you will actually detect early problems. Okay, because it helps when you identify issues such as excess of emissions before they escalate, you can find solution. All right, so give you an example. If you are monitoring air emission and notice levels exceeding the target, so you can take corrective actions like optimizing equipments, improving process, or add on scrubbers to reduce your air emissions. Okay, so that's why checking and corrective actions is very important to ensure you are keep on aligned. Right? Next, we go into management review. So management review is the moment of truth. Top leaders or top management in your company will assess your EMS effectiveness and decide on any changes that is required. All right, so this top management, the top management of the company, will review performance data, audit results, and feedback from stakeholders. Stakeholders is actually coming from your staff, okay, your people surroundings, whoever that is actually interested in the company. So most of the company's management might review their annual sustainability reports, okay, annually, at the end of the year, or they have a targeted period. So basically they will review the performance and evaluate the progress. And this steps is critical because it ensures the EMS remains relevant, remains effective, and still aligned with the company's strategy. It's just like a health checkup for the EMS. Okay, so what covers under EMS? Under management review. Okay, so points: normally top level involvement in management review. It is not only a normal engineers or cleaners to be in this management review. No, no, it's always involve the decision maker. Okay, your top management involved, where senior management evaluates EMS performance. Review the inputs is also another important point during this management review, because data like audit results, compliance status, any of your emissions has been fined by DOEs, okay, any of the goals are analyzed or not analyzed, which parts is missing, okay, if your results supposed to reach. Okay, for example, you already promised to reduce 50% of energy, but up to 1 year, you only reduce 40% or 30%, meaning that you are not achieving that policy, that early target. So what basically to be add on to the activities, or maybe to add on energy saving equipments. So when you have top management, they can actually allocate some financial budget into it. All right, so that is why they are important. The decisions for improvement is normally come from this top management. All right, and from this management review as well, it will keep your EMS aligned with company strategies and changing regulations, and drive continuous improvement across organization. Okay, so management review is a critical steps to ensure that EMS remains effective and dynamic. Okay, so the final one is on the continual improvement. Okay, because this is where companies build on their successes and learn from their failures. Okay, it doesn't mean that within 1 year you can comply, you can achieve whatever that you've targeted. But if any of that is not being improved or being achieved, so continual improvement is actually the time where the management will highlight and what are the improvement that needs to be taken. Okay, so about findings, new ways to reduce environmental impacts also falls under continual improvement. So the idea is that there's always room for improvement, no matter how well you are doing. Right? Okay. And before we wrap up, I just want to show few of ISO 14001 certification. Okay, so these companies has been certified with ISO 14001 certification, and this ISO 14001 certificate is basically globally recognized standard for environmental management. Just to recap, what are the differences between EMS and ISO 14001? Right? So EMS basically a system or framework that a company uses to manage its environmental responsibility. It is like an internal process. Okay, within your company, you manage your operation environmentally friendly. Okay, but when the company is ready to go for ISO 14001 certification, basically it is another step that the companies is taking. It is a stamp of approval from an external auditors, okay, that your EMS, your environmental management system implemented in the company meets international standard. So it is a recognition. Why do you get a certificate or certified? Why you want this certificate or to be known as a certified ISO 14001 company? First one, because it builds credibility. You show to your stakeholders that your company is serious about sustainability. Second is you boost efficiency. Okay, you encourage better resource management and cost saving in the company. And the third one is for your market advantage. Okay, you helps attract environmentally friendly conscious clients and customers. Okay, some of the customers, they have two products, and in between these two products, one company is producing their product with ISO 14001 certified, and another one is not certified with ISO 14001. So your customer or your client will choose your company, okay, which is ISO 14001 certified, because they know your company has contributed a lot to make sure while producing your product, they are also taking care of the environment. So this certification basically are not only just a paper, but they represent commitment. Okay, for example, the company you see here, they have worked hard to reduce their environmental impacts, conserve resources, and comply with regulation. So, as future professional, yes, my students in front of me here. So, always value companies with EMS. Okay, they are contributing to a greener planet while staying competitive in market. And who knows, you might lead to this initiative also one day. Alright, so wish you all the best, and I hope by the two recorded lecture that I've given here, you understand environmental management system. Okay, with that, thank you. Bye.